Starting podcasts is so dumb because you have no audience. So you're just like, hey, welcome to Who Gives a Shit? Brought to you by narcissism. I'm going to be distracted a little bit during this because we just got our cat spayed and we got it spayed too late. Ideally, if you get your cat spayed, it's when she's not in heat. The cat was in heat. And then they were like, we can't get her in till April. Apparently, there's 80 million cats in the area, and they're all fucking wanting to get pregnant right now. I don't know if you know anything about cats being in heat, because I didn't. But we were like, I think she's in heat, because she was meowing a little bit. And then she just started sexually assaulting every surface in the house. She'd look at you, and then would just be like, oh... oh, well, like cat's noises, but like, allow me to translate. She'd go on the wall... And she would go, oh, and she'd just look at you and be like, you're not going to have sex with me? All right, the wall will do. Oh, everything would just be like, it'd weird you out because you'd like want to pet the cat because she'd be all tiny and cute. And then she'd be like way too into it. You think that you want a cat to be like all over you and like affection because sometimes people have cats where they are just like, you have a cat, right? And you're like, yeah, we never see it, though. And then you're like, there it is. And it's like, and then just under anything. Literally, some cats are the worst. Oh, now she's all sweepy. Okay, good. And then if you made this noise, she would raise her little butt in the air like you were going to mount her. It was weirding me out, like in the kitchen. Like, we eat food here. I don't fuck here. She actually, there's a chair that is window height, and during the day, she would just stick her ass out of that window for the whole neighborhood to see. I don't know what she was hoping. So it's a solo podcast because Makenzi's unreliable. Solo podcast. And this is not called It's Fine. The solo podcasts are not called It's Fine. It's fucking magnificent. It's Marcus. Whoop, whoop. So I want to talk about trying to be a comedian in today. I guess I'm just going to go through the history of trying to become a comedian. In like the 80s, right? There was a comedy boom and there was comedy clubs everywhere. And you literally could like, if you thought you were funny at all, you didn't even have to be. You just had to think you were and have like a wacky suit on or like could do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. And there was so much work. You could tell people it was your job and you weren't lying. Like today, people will be like, I'm a comedian. And they're like, hit like an open mic twice a week and never get paid. And they're garbage. You could be garbage in 1980 and then you do comedy. And then you're like, I made $12,000 this year. And that's not a lot. But for a thing that is happening that you don't put that much. Imagine you flew kites. And somebody's like, you can make $12,000 a year flying kites and just do another job because it's not really that time consuming. Okay, how do I establish credibility? So just data. If you want facts, I'm trying to do it the modern way to make videos. I suck at making YouTube videos because I'm not consistent and they're supposed to be longer. Then TikTok came around and I always had this chip on my shoulder like, fuck, if I was on Vine, I would have been a billionaire piece of shit little 24-year-old by now. What the hell? How is this chronological? I wanted to start from the beginning. I went from 1980 to now. What a dumbass. I don't know when Bill Burr started, if it was the 80s or the 90s, but guys like Bill Burr, guys like Louis, guys like Dave Chappelle, they all have this advice, which is good advice and relevant, but not as relevant. That makes sense. They're like, you go to a city, you do stand-up, you keep doing stand-up. Dude, they were like headlining and featuring like 3 years, like a year in, like people be like 8 months in and they'd be like, I was on the road with Jimmy Fallon. It was crazy. Like Louis C.K. would be like, oh man, you had to eat all these shows. Like Bill Burr, they're like, you got to bomb. You got to like, you go up, you eat balls, you bomb. And first off, all that does is made so many terrible comedians not quit. Because they're like, you're terrible for 10 years and then you're just a legend. It's like, no, dude, they bombed in their own mind. They crushed all the time, and they were way funnier than you'll ever be. There's so many people that like hear these Louis C.K., like Bill Burr, like, you got to just grind. And like, dude, if you're not funny ever, it'd be like if you shot a basketball for 10 years and you never made one. You aren't just fucking shooting 90% from free throw after 10 years has passed. It's like, no, you don't have the touch, dude. So a lot of people don't have the touch, but they hear these stories from greats. It's like, the reason you hear is because they made it. There's so many people who didn't make it who were like, have like the same story as Bill Burr, and then they just gave up because they weren't good enough. So I always try and be self-aware enough to be like, dude, we got to give up now. Thank God I started young, so I could at least give up at a reasonable age. You see people start at like 28, and you're like, fuck. Yeah, so then all those guys say all these things, and they were like, there was so much more work, like in random places. Like Boston, obviously. Boston, they all grew up in Boston and shit, but like they would move to New York and then have shows at clubs. And I was like, okay, I'll just get really good in my area. And then I moved to New York City and was like, I'll do engineering at the same time because that's not time consuming. And then I like did like a half-ass all-in of doing stand-up and also trying to go to school for engineering and ended up just failing at both of them and hated New York City because you're like, this place smells like pish and pish. This place smells like pish. Oh my God. Wow, the cat, okay. So what happened was my phone got filled with storage. I had to take it off, delete some stuff, and then the cat just, man, in one swoop, she was like, how do we fuck this up so quick? She just ran onto the keyboard, and then I jumped off. I had to drop her off. She landed right on my toe and just scratched the shit out of it. There was so much. Okay, so stand-up. This is the history of stand-up from an idiot's perspective. Comedians, the path used to be just fucking, you do mad stand-up all the time, you just crush stand-up. And all I wanted to do was stand-up. And then I moved to New York City. It just seemed like the effort you were putting in is not rewarded, and it didn't matter who was, I don't know. To me, I felt like it was soul-crushing. Just to be broke in the most expensive city already is dumb as shit to me. And then you're like, all right, you know how stand-up, you would just do it and it would take 5-10 minutes to get to the place, wait like a half hour, talk to people who were friendly, and then the open mic would be good, and then you do 5 minutes. New York was like, all right, this place is 1 mile away. It takes an hour to get there. It cost a bunch of money. Not a bunch of money, but if you want to do like 3 in a night, you're like, each one costs $5. It costs $5 to $7 for the train or whatever, and then it's gonna take 7 hours. And also you're 20, so you can't get into a lot of places, or you get in the place early, and then if you want to leave and go outside, you're gonna get kicked out. That happened a few times. I like left a place to get fresh air because they're like, you're gonna go about 8,000th. Is that cool? You're gonna go about 8,000th, and then they're like, you get 1 minute. You're like, who the fuck does 1 minute? It was just rough. But then guys would before in the past, like Bill Burr would go to New York City. He already he would be doing clubs right away. And it's just like the networking and the going up to people. Like I have no problem being friends with people, but being fake with people. There's so many people that are just trying, go up to you and then you start talking and you think you're like, oh my God, I'm so lonely. Finally, I'm going to have a regular conversation. And then dude, I literally had a guy who I thought I was talking to, and then he just starts being like, and what's the deal with this can? Is there a toucan on it? What is this? What is this, Fruit Loops? And you're like, are you doing a bit that you just thought of in the middle of real life? Shut the fuck up. What are you doing? I want to kill myself. Somebody real talk to me. This guy's just trying to network, and then just people come up to you and they say oh, that was really good, and then they're just trying to see if you can get them on shows, and you're like, no, I don't know how to get on shows. It's just annoying when you're like, if I do the best, reward me for it. Yeah, and all these guys are they'll be 3 months in, they're like, and then I was opening for Jerry Seinfeld. You're like, you suck now. How did you open for Jerry Seinfeld? It was 1980. You're like, okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. I don't know. It's just when I make the move to go somewhere else now, I'm trying to figure out what the next move is. And it feels like the next mecca is Austin, Texas. So if you're a comedian, move to Austin, Texas. I think that's what I'm going to do. But I want to figure out a base for stand-up. So now, in today's age, TikTok. If you need credentials, I've got over 10 million views on that and 45,000 followers. 2 million likes, so that's pretty decent, right? So today, in today's world, the thing you want to do is try and figure out the internet. You got to build a following, and then you have people watch you do stand-up. So I'm trying to build a following so this is my day-to-day, trying to be a comedian. It used to be do as many open mics as possible. COVID fucked everything up. There's not quality shows out there. You can do stand-up through Zoom, which is stupid as shit. And, you want, like, nobody does that. I don't know anybody who's like, we're going to see a Zoom show. We're going to all sit down, and we're going to pay to sit down in a place that it's like, no, dude, that sucks. I don't want to watch you through a camera do stand-up. The whole point of doing stand-up is because the guy at any moment could see you and be like, fuck your pants. And you're like, woo! Or like there's a guy who's talking too much, and then you can literally like dispel the tension by being like, that guy's shoulders are dumb. And then everybody's like, whoa! And then you ride that wave forever. Laughter shouldn't be controlled by the volume on your laptop. If you're bombing, you just turn it up, and eventually like one guy laughing is like blowing your eardrums out. So you can't feel it. Everybody's volume's different. When you're in a room with people, you know what it is. You know when you're bombing because you feel silence. It hurts, but like in a funny way. Sometimes like it literally is like getting slapped and then like, wow, that hurt. That is the best way to explain bombing doing stand-up. So now, trying to build a following online. You try and build a following online, which is cool. I have a following on the only platform where if you have 45,000 followers, it doesn't get you any money. I've gotten over 10 million views, and on anything else, that would be amount of money where you could tell your parents, and they'd be like, wow, keep going. On this platform, $350. 10 million views. $350. And it's crazy inconsistent, but hopefully you can lead that over to something else, and then that'll make people want to see you, and then stuff opens up, and then you move down to Austin, Texas, Joe Rogan sees you, and then you dance for Joe Rogan. You don't dance for the masses. You do a private show. My whole thought process was we move back home, we figure it out a different way. We try and grow a following. That's what I'm trying to do right now. You grow the following, you get people that want to see you, and then you can do what the others did, but it's just different. So right now, this is basically me trying to document coming up today. So we're going to keep doing these. When I was in New York trying to do stand-up, I was like, damn, I wish there was a different way. If I'm 50, 60, and I'm an accomplished comedian, I'm going to figure out a way to make it so people that I think are talented will have opportunities. In New York City, I was like, this is not like an ideal way to do it. It takes forever to get everywhere. Yeah, you can do a lot of stand-up, but it's the most expensive place in the brokest profession. It's like, can we all agree to move? I don't get this. It's like nobody's pulling the trigger. So then finally, Joe Rogan makes the move to Austin, and he's talking about doing that. So everyone moved to Austin, Texas, make that city too expensive, and then somebody else moves somewhere else and makes stuff. Like Theo Vaughn went to Nashville or something. He should blow that place up. There should be so many more meccas of stand-up comedy. What people don't get is like so there's a place called Comedy Cellar in New York. If you know about the Comedy Cellar, it's like fucking every hour there's 4 comedians doing 15 minutes or like 10 minutes or whatever. 4 or 5 comedians, and then a new lineup of comedians, and then like an hour later, maybe some of the old comedians. They get like 5, like you get a ridiculous amount. But like in regular places, the talent isn't good enough to have 4. Like if you come to where I'm from, Albany, New York, you can't have 4 different comedians each do 15 minutes that are local. They're not good. But like if you go to a place that is like reasonable, with like a lot of people, so there's more to choose from, like Austin, Texas, or like if you went to Florida, or if you went to Las Vegas, that would make more sense to have more places like that with the tiers of like a show being multiple people, and then multiple people can grow. It just makes more sense as opposed to like because comedy clubs now, there's not that many of them. And what they just want is consistency, right? They're not like, it's weird because like there's comedy clubs that you're like, they want to grow, they want to build the best comedians. But then a lot of comedy clubs are just like, we want money, we want consistent profits, all that stuff makes sense. So then they're like, okay, this guy's going to host. He's a local guy. And then they get like 4 of those guys, and then they're just like, we're just going to rotate all those guys. So then like it doesn't matter how well you do. It doesn't matter anything. It's just like it's so much harder to break into that. Like once they've established like these are the guys that do enough. They're not like, we want to get this guy to host and then feature and then he's going to fucking be a comedian. Like a lot of those places don't give a shit about that. So they built a Funny Bone in my town right when I left. So I went to New York City, they built a Funny Bone, and by the time I came back, it already had the people. Like I had people come up to me after shows like at other places and be like, damn, that was really good. Okay, believe it or not, sometimes things go well. More often than not, they don't. But sometimes they go well. People are like, oh, man, that's good. You did well. Yeah, we've been in the Funny Bone a few times. They have the same guy, and he does the same jokes every time. And it was, like, good at first, and then it's like, oh, he does the same, like, oh, okay, cool. I just want people to be as funny as possible. And when you have people just, like, getting too comfortable doing the same thing over and over and, like, oh, okay, I secured my spot. They're fine with this. Everybody's fine with it. But I'm not fine with it. So I'm going to figure out a different way. So that's what this is. Next time, I'm going to talk about what trying to be a comedian modern day is, because I think it's through the internet, build a following, and then I'm going to take over. Or if not, this is just the ramblings of a failure. Either way, it's kind of funny. Either way, it's like either way, it's either cool and you're like, oh my God, he did it from his bedroom, or you just get to watch a guy fail at his dreams. And dude, that's so fucking funny to just like watch one of these and it has like 200 views 5 years after it's been posted and be like, fuck that guy, he never made it. I didn't make it either, baby. So at least you won't be alone. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel, show people. If you don't like the video, tell me in the comments. Or if you want me to do something, comment that. Or if you want me to kill myself, please tell me, because I don't want my thoughts to be alone. I want them to have someone to agree with. All right. Jared, I don't know what the title of this is, but enjoy it. Peace.